Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. I am Sylvia Hayes, and you are watching Good News at Primetime. Tonight, we're going to be talking about managing relationships. I'm not talking about controlling relationships, but managing it. Because a lot of people want to control people, control the relationship, control what somebody else do. We're not talking about that because we don't want to control. We want to manage. And manage is a good thing to do for yourself because when you let somebody else control you, there's a lot of stress. Or when you're trying to control somebody and they're bucking, there's a lot of stress. So we don't want to control. We want to manage. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Also, let me tell you, good news. This is my book, Good News at Prime Time. You want to get, not Good News at Prime Time, Power Thoughts. Power Thoughts. You want to get my book, Power Thoughts, empowering you to be successful in life. You can get that book at AandKProductions.com. AandKProductions.com. Get my book. You would love it. It will benefit you so much. And one of the things in my book I'm going to tell you is my mind just went blank. Okay, one of the things in the book is love a person for who they are and not who you want them to be. Love a person for who they are and not who you want them to be, because a lot of people, they upset with people because they're one way and you think they should be another way. That's not the way it is. God made everybody different, so everybody gonna think different. So just gotta accept that. Okay. So with that in mind, we have our guest with us today, Miss Sharia Thomas, who's going to be helping us with this conversation today. And I also have my co-host, Mr. Reggie Drama. Hey, Reggie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. Just coming off this resurrection, so I'm feeling good, refreshed, rejoiceful, and regrouping.
Oh, okay. Good. So did you have a good Easter?
Ah, yes. I
Oh,
didn't have no eggs.
okay. Yeah. Where did you go to church this time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my church was in the office back there.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what I've been doing since the pandemic. I get up and go to my office, get on the computer, and watch the service. And they
The
had a lot of
virtual.
people there today. I mean, not today, Sunday. It was a lot of people in there, a lot more than they usually have. And, that's what they do on Easter anyway. Everybody goes to church on Easter Sunday.
That's
Yeah.
the big day. When you look at it, that's the magic day. I think they say more people go to church on Easter Sunday than they do Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it because man, on Easter normally the sanctuary is overloaded, and then they have to put people in the foyer and the overflow in another room.
Yeah.
So
And this year you had a lot of different celebrations. We had talked about that. You had Easter, you had celebrated by probably you don't have to really be a Christian to celebrate Easter. Then you got Resurrection Day, and you got Ramadan, and you got the Passover. So I think they say once every 33 years, all of them fall around the same time period.
oh really?
Oh yeah.
Oh okay. Yeah.
So you had some of everybody celebrate.
Yeah, well, I don't keep up with all of that stuff. I barely had Easter this time. Yeah. But today we're going to be talking about relationships. And it is so important that we understand that you can't control people in the way they think. A lot of times when people go into a relationship like spouses, trying to find a spouse, and a lot of times women say, well, I'm going to marry him and I'll change him. You know, that don't work. No, he
That
gonna
ain't
have
a,
to,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah, that could be a difficult one.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, and we're bringing on our guest, Miss Sharia Thomas. How you doing, Sharia? Got to unmute.
Good evening. I'm doing well. How are you all doing?
I'm doing good.
Doing great, doing great.
Thanks,
Yes.
thanks for having me on the show today.
Oh, anytime. You want to tell the audience a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm Sharia Thomas, and I'm a licensed mental health therapist, meaning that I diagnose and treat mental and emotional disorders. I'm also a certified life coach. A little bit of a difference between the two is, of course, as a life coach, there's more focused on holding the client accountable and setting goals that could also mirror same issues in terms of the mental health field. But as a life coach, you cannot diagnose as well as use insurance. So that is my part in terms of a profession. I love to sing, so I do sing and songwrite, and I do have a published album as well. I like to just consider the perspective of being a consultant, lifestyle consultant, because I help people when it comes to their physical, mental, and emotional health, because I do have a background as it relates to um, physical fitness, being a fitness instructor and certified in nutrition. And that really helps me to help the whole person regarding my clients and just people in general.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So you're just a well-rounded person. You fit right on in this topic. Yeah. So, what I was saying that a lot of people get into relationships where they think they can fix somebody.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thoughts on that? Whether they say I'm going to marry him and I'm going to make him do all right, do what the way I want him to be, rather than accepting him for who he is, they want to change him. What is your thought on that?
My thought on that is definitely just in a sense of, like you said, the key word is acceptance and being able to accept one another of where you are in terms of as an individual and your level of growth. And when we try to change a person, which is not possible, it's up to that person to want to change and influence. Um, and we will be in a sense of an illusion because we're looking for the possibility of what could be versus truly what the reality is.
Right. Yeah. And my thought is you can't control or change a person, but they have to see the value in it. The person you want to change, they have to see the value in changing, and then they would change on their own.
There we go.
If they don't see the value in changing, what's the purpose of changing? Just to satisfy that other person? It's like, that's not me. Why should I do this just because of you? See, they have to see a value in changing. That's the way I look at it.
Totally.
Well, you ladies made me think now. Is it that the women are always trying to change the men, or you find yourself seeing men trying to change the women?
Men trying to change women too.
Yes, it goes both ways. It definitely goes both ways. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
I got to be a little biased as a male. I'm representing the males. Because, sometimes males are like, we have sometimes smaller expectations, but women might have bigger expectations, especially like in a relationship. I was listening to a brother earlier. He said men might hang around for 30 years and never think about marriage or nothing. But, women is a difference, but, so I would say women have a tendency to, want to define the relationship more than men. Now, this is me as a male.
And that, drummer, you bring up a good point, and that's just moving into the sense of what is a healthy dynamic. And everyone was first we have different values that we bring to the table, one, as well as the sense of when you say expectations, just the sense of what's unrealistic and realistic regarding what is expected out of the relationship. One thing that even for myself and I tell my clients is drop the expectations, is really keeping a value on what is important and being able to talk that over ongoing in the relationship. Now, the point of you saying, the women have more of that direction, we do have to consider how we are groomed, how we are accustomed, and how we grow up in terms of as women versus men, and the viewpoint of it leading towards marriage. And so, societal wise, if a man is more groomed towards having his freedom versus a woman being geared towards having a family, settling down, that does make a very big difference in terms of perspective and mindset when we think about relationships.
Yeah, and two, some men, when they get married, they expect that woman to cook and clean and do everything for them. And then some women is like, I didn't do that at home. What make you think I'm gonna do this for you?
Very
It's like, no. I mean, and then too, it depends on their culture. Some cultures, the men might do the work and help out a lot, versus the women might wait on the man. Just the way she was brought up, or her way of thinking. It's like, I'm not gonna wait on you hand and foot. We can get in here and do this together. I will help you sometime, but not all the time.
Most definitely. That's a commonality that I see when I will say, I'll share first on a personal note, as well as dealing with clients, is the sense of what really is healthy and what is expected in a relationship, marriage. And so, for myself, I came from a family to where the roles were very defined. My mom was more of a stay-at-home mom, and my father was the breadwinner. And so that was something that I was accustomed to, but at the same time, I've always been very independent. So being in the role of, being a mom, being a wife, and having to, the belief that, yes, you do tend to home, but also wanting that exploration of knowing there's more to you as an individual woman, and that leading into the relationship. So that plays a big dynamic. And I see that play out even when I have, sessions with couples and clients, and helping them to regroom their mindset on it being more assertive, an assertive connection versus a defined stereotypical role. And that really gets in the way when there is not that sense of equality in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the other things is, in relationships, sometimes one spouse is expecting the other to give up their identity for them, and that's not good for the relationship, because down the line, they may regret it. I could have been doing this if it wasn't for you. You wanted me to stay home. I could have been a nurse. I could have been a doctor. I could have owned my own business or something like that. And sometimes that regret builds up. So you want to keep your identity, and you have to explain to your spouse how important it is to have your self-identity rather than identifying with them. Oh, you John's wife. Hi, John's wife. No, I'm Sylvia. No, I'm not just John's wife. I am Sylvia. I have my own identity. So that is important too, because some people might rebel on that.
So right. True. Totally agree. There's just some. Go ahead, drummer. I don't want to.
Oh, you go. Well, I was just saying, in the, you look at the relationships as they were defined in the past. I look at relationships now because women are more empowered, and in the past, the relationships were more geared towards the men. Men were considered the suitors or whatever, and the women had to put themselves in a position to be a wife, cook, clean, have the babies. But now, because of so many things, all of the dynamics have changed, and it does look like, in a way, because I had a conversation with some brothers at the barbershop, look like men are losing their power, because men are like, because women are more into the relationship, they're talking more, where a lot of traditional relationships, the man kind of dictated stuff. Back in the day, you look at prior to the baby boomers, the women, they didn't have bank accounts. They couldn't have bank accounts. They couldn't own property. They couldn't, they was basically just staying at home, watching the kids and cook it and clean it. Well, that changed in the city in the 60s, with, let's say, women live or whatever. But that movement evolved into where they're equal partners. And well, maybe my question is, the new relationship is more about communication and things of that nature versus what was built on before. Even though those might be considered values, but now people are a lot more open to want to communicate and listen to each other.
So true. Most definitely. When I say that sense of, as you said, the power dynamic was very different in generations prior to, and the new outlook on a healthy, equal relationship, meaning it's assertive on both parts, that each party brings to the table individuality, identity, as Ms. Sylvia said, and that sense of whole self. And so there's no need to try to control or change one another because we are in a place of there being more personal development on each end. So in moving in that direction of being more assertive, there's some principles in how to navigate that because many people still struggle and even don't know how to create that dynamic in their own relationships. So I do want to share that at some point as we move through this conversation regarding really what is a healthy dynamics to a relationship that allows it to be assertive. And what does that really mean? And what does it really look like in the play out of what a relationship is?
Yeah. And one of the things I want to say in the spousal thing, be sure you communicate, because if you don't communicate what's bothering you, it can wreck your relationship, because all of a sudden one day something gonna happen and boom, the whole wall is gonna fall down. And you want to communicate. Don't let it build up. Gently tell a person, this is bothering me, or why do you do this, or whatever. You don't have to fuss, nag, because nagging won't get you anywhere either. But I feel that you are doing this to me, or I feel such and such and such. They'll communicate what is going on, so this anger won't continue to build up. If your spouse is leaving the bread open every day, it bothers me when you leave the bread open. Why do you continue to leave it open? Something like that. Try to be careful and not leave the bread open. Sweep up behind yourself, or don't leave your clothes in the middle of the floor. Relationships. I let you have my car when it was full of gas. Please put some more in there. Not yelling at, when you got my car, it was filled up. Now I want you to go out there and put some gas in it. You don't do that. Just gently do it, and that will make a healthier relationship. Because when somebody when they're fussing, you're gonna have a tendency to rebel. You're gonna buck a little bit when they're throwing the stones at you. But when you brushing them with a feather, they're more apt to do what you need to do. So that's an important thing to know in practice in relationships. Don't just throw stones. Try to ease your way in.
I totally agree. I've written an article called Reactivating Your Love Factor. And that essentially talks to what you're saying, Sylvia, as it relates to how we communicate. We can talk to each other, or we can communicate to one another. And that takes a receiver and a sender, that we literally are actively listening and being willing to understand our partner's perspective. And so I like to call it the affirmative I am. That's when we are leading from a place of how I am affected, what I need, versus the attack, just as you said, gentle, like a feather, just be nice and gentle, and coming from a place of, in my profession, we call it a soft startup. And when we start off in a soft way, then it can be received in more of a positive way versus that person becoming defensive and then go on the attack in how our approach is. So that definitely is essential.
Okay. And the same thing is going to go with kids too. Because sometimes, you can be fussing at kids. Sometimes, especially little ones, if you're always yelling at them, you're going to make them nervous and afraid of you. You don't want them to be afraid of you. You want them to understand you and do what you tell them to do, but not be afraid of you. So the same thing with the kids. Gently tell them. But then, some kids get hard-headed. You might have to yell a little bit. But then they would understand after they know they've been told a few times. They would understand that better, rather than all of a sudden you attacking. So that's a good thing too, to practice with the children. And on top of that, I had to tell my mom this. The Bible said for the parents not to aggravate the children.
All right.
Yeah.
Give us that scripture so we all know.
You know what? Had I known, I would have looked it up. I found it in there where it says for the children, for the parents not to aggravate the children.
That must be the new Sylvia edition.
No.
We all on that same page. But yeah, what we're talking about is that level of respect, and if we keep that as a principle in terms of what's a healthy dynamic, whether it is our partner in relationship or intimately, romantically, or whether it is our child, just as you said. And so I have a respect for myself. I have a respect for you, even in speaking to our children. As you said, the yelling that can trigger anxiety. Yes, that level of causing them to be on edge or on guard the way that we speak to our children. So in a sense of, we need the sternness, we need to be firm with our voice, but yelling is not healthy because that definitely can affect their development ongoing. But we are humans, we make mistakes, but that is the sense of how can we stay in that space of being respectful, even if it is our child, even if it is that we're on the job, staying in a space that we're not attacking one another, we're not saying mean or hurtful things to one another. So staying in that respectful place is definitely essential.
Yeah, and one of the things that harms a relationship between the parents and the child is when the parents calling their child stupid and you're dumb and you would never amount to anything. That is very damaging for a child's self-esteem, and they're not going to love themselves as much.
Yes.
They're not going to try to do as well as they would if you would say, I'm so proud of you. You make me so happy. And when they get there and see, I know you can do better. Let's see you do it next time.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Well, some parents have to be put in timeout.
There you go.
Because I've seen different parents handle things differently. I remember, when I was raising my son, we went, I think it was Disney World, and this guy, he went nuts on his son because when they 5 and 6 years old, they're scared of everything. And he was like, when I paid all this so-and-so money, you're going to get your so-and-so behind on one of these blanket rides. Paid all this money. And he went nuts. He had to, basically we had to restrain him a little bit. Said, man, let him enjoy. Don't make this be a traumatic experience for a 6-year-old where daddy went nuts because the child wasn't doing what he wanted him to do. And again, going into communication, I think, especially in, I guess, African-American community, we're starting to open up a little bit with our children. back in the day, you didn't ask mama and daddy a lot of questions.
Right.
It is what it is. It was what it was because they said it was. But now you'll have kids that say, "Mommy, Daddy, I don't think that's right." They'll challenge you, and some parents are not used to that. Where today, like I say, it's changing the relationship, the love relationships. Things have changed within the family. Things have changed within the work environment, the business environment, and even our relationship with this country. Things have changed, because we see different things and we want different things. We all want a piece of this pie, and when people go out of their way to either impede the process, the forward movement of anybody, as a human beings, we all part of relationship. And if anybody's either, on purpose hindering your relationship to get their way, it hurts the person. It really hurts both people because you don't get the most out of the relationship when people aren't allowed to grow. Even your kids, significant other, your spouses, when they grow and everybody's doing and being fruitful, it's a whole happy family.
Yeah.
So,
And one of the things I want to say too is with the kids, parents don't know everything. And sometimes the kids can actually teach you something. I know my kids have taught me a few things. So when your kids are talking, try to listen to them. Not necessarily you got to do what they say or anything like that. You got to always be firm and always be the parent. But sometimes you can just listen to them and understand where they're coming from. And even though you understand where they're coming from and they could be making a mistake, and you still go, you do it this way. But at least listen to them, because that is important for a child to know that you heard them. Because sometimes they might have something to say, and it's important, and the parents, they know the parents don't listen to them, so they don't tell them. And it can be harmful for them, not to tell things to their parents. But listen to your children. That's the one thing I would always say. Listen to them because they have
can I
something.
I'm gonna ask you all a question. As women, have you been a part of your family where you like their friend, where they can talk to you and come, kind of like a big sister or mama? They have the respect of the mother, but at the same time, they feel open enough to bring something to you that, in my case, it was my grandmother. I could tell my grandmother pretty much anything. But do you all, she wasn't like my best friend, you know what I'm saying? But, you see people now, they really, especially the women and their daughters, they engage in a point where they kind of like sisters. They kind of like sisters. They share a lot. But do you see yourself kind of being not necessarily overly friendly with your children, but open enough to listen to them and have some degree of feedback?
Most definitely. When it comes to family dynamics, kind of coming from a perspective of being a sibling and a child in a large family, I'm the youngest of 9, and also raising my own children. Being a child and a sibling, it was definitely my parents listened to me. I'm thankful that I was the last, so they kind of learned along the way, and they were more receptive to see me as the individual and take my perspective in, and passing that along, relating to my sisters, my older sisters, being able to feel comfortable to communicate to them. And that is essential that we have that connection with one another. All families don't. And that does have to be learned, taught, and implemented. As my boys and raising my sons, that's so essential of knowing that they have a voice. And if we can, moving forward in this new outlook of how we develop more healthy relationship dynamics with our families, our friends, our partners, in relationships, our coworkers, is taking one another's perspective. It doesn't matter how old, how young we are, but knowing that there's a sense of even Sylvia said, is being willing to listen to what they're saying, but also listening in a way that we are honest and open to hear what we may not want to hear, um, and having respect for that. I can say, even just as a parent, that I do try to be receptive to what my children's needs are. That's another definitely big principle that we want to continue to hold on to when it comes to healthy relationships is we have needs. Our children have needs, our partners have needs, our coworkers have needs, and that the meeting in the middle, that gap, is talking it through, communicating about, well, what is that? What is it that you're needing, and how can we value that together? And that can help to stay in that space of a level of respect, no matter what the relationship is, child to parent, coworker to coworker, partner to partner in a romantic relationship.
I was gonna put this out. This was a question, and maybe I can get it kind of into the same ballpark. But now you have families that are kind of open. They are most of their information, especially celebrity, is already out there. Taking point, the Smith family, Will Smith. You have a family that pretty much looks as though they discuss everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put it out in the public forum. And, things can happen because you say, well, it looked like they should have their stuff together because in the case of Will Smith, when he came and, at the award ceremony and things build up to the point where he ended up slapping the guy, and so sometimes even being open, are there hidden things that are triggered that that show a need for anger management or some type of consultation in families? Because they appear to be, open, and they appear to be everything's, we talk about everything, but yet there could be an incident that happens that push you in the direction where you go off. But do you see that in your professional? You probably don't see extreme like they did, but there are families that are dealing with different things and dealing with, I guess, the stress and the management of it, whether it be anger management, hidden triggers that people can look for in a relationship that could kind of, I guess, help it not to escalate like that in a public setting where they just go off.
So I want to understand what your question is. Are you asking, are there warning signs that one could look for relating to what might be unhealthy or toxic behaviors for individual, whether it is in a family or a intimate relationship? Is that where we're getting there?
Well, yes, like in a family, it looks like you're discussing all these things. Y'all having an open table, and then somebody's really not feeling it.
Okay.
But it's not being brought out. Does that require additional therapy or some type of management, anger management or what?
Well, it depends. Here, what I hear is first recognizing that as individuals, we won't know what will trigger another person. So when we say trigger, meaning that it could be something that comes up in conversation that a person hears, a person sees, and it causes them to react or respond if they have the skill. And so, as you said, in terms of they may become upset or angry or lash out physically or verbally. And what do you do with that? If there is effect to where they're causing harm to themselves or the other person, then yes, we want to seek some professional help. If this is something that could be addressed ongoing, in the dynamic of surrounding them with people that are more supportive. That's possible too. Being able to actually determine what those specific triggers are, that is up to the person to learn. Now, if this is a child, we know that the child may not be very receptive, or even a teen may not be, some even adults may not be aware of what their triggers are. That does cause for more of a professional intervention to help them to gain that level of self-awareness, because everybody's in their different stages of development. So if there's someone who actually is acting out and say that they are having a problem with managing their, I don't like to say managing, really what we're managing is our stressors. And in managing our stressors, it helps us to regulate our emotions better. So we're not managing anger per se, we're channeling our anger in a way that's more healthy, because we all get angry at some point. It's a natural emotion to feel. But I'm just giving an example of what that could be, and the importance of, yes, we do want to seek some additional assistance if that cannot be worked out, say at the workplace or within the family unit, to not be afraid first to ask for help and seek that professional help as needed.
Okay. Because in families, even the relationship, our personal relationship with ourselves, within our families, and within our communities, and even within the country, dealing with things that bother, because the same things don't bother everybody. Some people are like, man, they can take a lot. And you say, man, there's no way in the world I'd be taking that, man. The way they talk to you on your job, man, I would have been done popped them so-and-so. I've seen people, it doesn't take that much that people go off, especially now that we in the pandemic or pandemonium situation. People are isolated. They're just coming out, interacting with other people. And that's part of relationships, because people have got to make new adjustments for people. People are doing things that you might not agree with, or you might not accept. But we live in a world now where even your kids, because you used to be able to, you could say that the kids were kind of like their parents. But kids have so many mediums where they can learn, whether it be the TV or social media, school, other environments, until it helps. It helps the family, for everybody wants something different, but it also complicates it, But I guess another question would be, what is your personal relationship, the job, or something? I know you had outlined some key things that we need to focus on, because everybody wants to have their own identity,
right? Yes.
And really, in a situation where it's almost impossible for some people to say, well, everybody can't have their own identity. Some people gonna have to tone it down, because if everybody did what they wanted to do, we live in chaos. But is there a happy median where you can let the kids go all the way left, all the way right, or without, breaking the mold? Because it got to be some standards.
You can let children, as far as they're concerned, children can do a lot of things, but you have to set these boundaries, for them. So you can go all the way over, but know your boundaries. That's the way I can say it. You could, like, as a parent, some parents say, my children can say, they can talk to me openly. Sure, you can talk to me openly, but you're going to be respectful.
Most definitely. Yeah.
So you can talk to me, but you're going to be respectful, and you're going to still know your place.
You just said a hard word. Know your place.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes, because there is as parents, we're still an authority figure. And that's the boundary in terms of what Sylvia is talking about, is the dynamics is very different with a child to parent or child to adult relationship versus an adult to an adult relationship on the job in terms of a professional setting, or in an intimate relationship where it is a friendship or a romantic relationship. So having, if we look at it as it relates to some commonalities of what maintains that level of keeping it healthy, or building, because some of us don't even know literally what a healthy relationship may be. Truly, some people truly just have grown up in an environment where there was a lot of dysfunction. And so, as you said, drummer, um, what might be some of those, as I said earlier, those principles, so that there is a takeaway and we can look at, yeah, this is something, a framework that can help you to move in that direction. I'll give five tops of five themes as it relates to what having it or developing that healthy dynamic in terms of a relationship. It can even be applied to those multiple different dynamics, child to adult, adult to adult in a professional setting, on the job, or even more romantic or intimate friendship type of dynamics. Is first off is respect. If I respect myself and I respect you, then I'm going to stay in a level of not yell, not call you out your name. I'm not being in an attack mode with you. So in demonstrating that level of respect, I value you, you value me. So we can apply that when it comes to who my child is. I can apply that in terms of in the workplace and with my friend, or even my partner. So if we can stay in first, number one is I respect myself. I'm going to talk in a way that is respectful to me as well as what is respectful to you. Number one principle. Number two would be needs. I have needs, you have needs. So how can we apply that to look at child to adult, adult to adult in the workplace, and then also more of a setting as a friend or an intimate relationship? Yeah, our children have needs too. And even if they are small and they really don't know what they are, then of course that's the authority that as the parent we guide, we set the structure, we create the boundary of praising them. They need the positive, but they also need that level of discipline and parenting as well. And so we have to set rules and routines to help to keep them in alignment so that they can grow and be more productive. But they still have needs too. And so that comes in that level of communication. Same with as an adults, is what are the needs? Having that open dialogue of, this is what I'm needing out of this relationship. This is what I'm needing on the job. That can even help it as it relates to trying to get that promotion. If it's never communicated or discussed, then how would the other person know that there needs to be some type of change factor happening there? So I have needs, you have needs, and staying in a place that we can be open and honest. I would say that is the big and the hardest one that can play out, is people truly being authentic, people truly demonstrating what is real and genuine, because some people come with an agenda. Some people are fearful and may hide things, or people do play mind games as well. But if we can start to follow, okay, you know what, even though this might be a little bit scary, even though me addressing this with, say, my supervisor, it might cause me to be reprimanded for it, that I'm still going to be open and honest. I'm having that principle in place for myself, because then I can stay in a place where there's no need to have some type of hidden agenda in the way. That's so essential that we want to keep in any relationship. When we're open and honest with our children, yes, there's a dynamic of what's age appropriate. There's certain things that we don't need to communicate to our children because they may not be at a place where they are able to handle that at a certain age. But knowing that they can have the space to be able to come to us and we're open to it instead of judging them on it or criticizing them. There's that open space for that. The listening.
One of the things I wanted to say about children, as far as limiting, sometimes kids will pick up things from other people, from other children, and they bring it back home. And if you don't feel like it's age appropriate, you say, you don't say that. That is not for a child to say, you know, because I have a problem with, maybe it's because of the way I was brought up. I have a problem with a 6 and 7-year-old saying you're lying. You know, even though they may be lying, but I prefer them saying that's not the truth or you're telling a story. Maybe that's the way I was brought up because, look, I was grown before I felt comfortable saying lie in front of my mom. Grown, you know. So, you know.
You get that Mississippi backhand.
Yeah, exactly. We had to say, tell the truth. They telling a story on me, you know. So, you know, so and some things the kids gonna pick up things. So when you hear that, you have to communicate with them. Say that's not correct. That's not the way you say it. That's not what you say or what you do. You know, because that's you have to stay in a child's place. You know, that's for an adult to be saying stuff like that. Because some kids and adults also they have to be mindful of the things they say around kids because they be going around saying you MF and all that other stuff. Kids pick it up, go to school and say the same thing. They're going to repeat what you said. So it's important that you communicate with your children what and what not to say, especially those bad words. And you don't say that in front of them anyway because they're learning from you. You know, and that's an important thing to know about a relationship with parents and children. Those children are learning from you.
Oh,
They're learning. And as far as even washing dishes, you know, because, you know, me, when I wash dishes, I put Clorox in my dishwater, right? So I was, my son-in-law, either I was here or at their house, and he saw me put Clorox in the dishwater, and he said, that's where she got that from. You know, because my daughter doing the same thing in her house, put Clorox in her dishwater. You know, so children are going to learn. You may not know it. You may not think so, but they're learning and they're going to take that stuff they learn from you into adulthood. So it's important to have a relationship where you can teach them the right and the wrong things to do and say.
That's so true. That's parenting. That's the element that everyone does not know as it relates to. That's the guidance part. That's the separation from more of the adult to adult relationship is the child has to still be guided. We're here as parents to rear them in the right direction. And so that level of self-correction, that has to come from us. And some people do struggle with that. Some people do struggle with setting that boundary, you know, that we talked about of being too friendly with their children, being so comfortable that you're cursing around them, yet not realizing how impressionable that is that, David or Tina was cursing at school and now you're upset because they were cursing at school. But what are you doing? You know? So that connection of we have to be that role model. We have to demonstrate that level of respect, number one principle in terms of how we're speaking, how we're behaving as it relates to that child to parent relationship.
Yeah. And you can't be afraid to discipline your children either. Because sometimes, you know, they might say, I don't want him to be upset with me. But Dad, that's your job. You know, when my child tell me, I don't like you no more. I hate you. I'm going good. I know I'm doing something right. That's the way I look at it. I'm doing
Yes.
something right. If you don't like me, I'm doing something right. So I had no problem with that at all.
Mhm.
Because they're gonna get over it, because that's a temporary feeling that they have. And I know they're gonna down the road, they're gonna know I was right. Down the road, they're gonna know I was doing the right thing for them. But
Mhm.
right now, it's their feelings, is what they want, and they feel like they should have what they want. You got to stand up for it. I said,
Most
nope,
definitely.
that's not what you're supposed to do. And that's part of the relationship, because if you give a child everything they want, when they become an adult, they're going to feel like they should get everything they want. They want.
Be spoiled.
Yeah. And then if they don't get what they want, then they're going to do bad things to get it a
Mhm.
lot of times.
Mhm.
So,
Spare the rod, spoil the child. Isn't that the saying?
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Well, one thing I will say, I don't condone spanking now, and that's something I never did, and really that I never received. Not to say that my siblings didn't. As I said, I'm the youngest of nine, so my parents' parenting skills they did develop more over those years.
mhm. And
But
then you learn from your siblings what not to do.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
we're talking about is essentially helping our children to learn the consequences of their actions. And so that even builds a stronger development in terms of the adult. So if we start to build that as in our children to recognize, hey, that's not okay. This is what's going to happen because you did do this. That helps them to see that first off, everything that I want, not that there's anything wrong with desires. It's only natural and healthy that we all have desires. We actually really do need that. But the sense of what's that line? What is that boundary? And when I cross it and I've done something that's inappropriate, there's also something that has to be paid for. And that is the
Mhm.
sense of knowing that there are consequences. And if we
Consequences.
teach them that as they're young, then they learn to follow that and they will bring that into their adulthood.
Yeah. So let's talk about friends,
Mm.
relationship with friends. A lot of time people have friends, and they get disappointed in them because they tell them
Mm.
something and they think they should keep it, but then their friend tells somebody else, or their
Oh.
friend get
Mhm.
jealous. So you have to have you have a relationship with friends, but you have to know how far you can go with it. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Can't tell everybody everything.
Exactly. You can't tell everybody everything. But it's good to have a relationship, but just know your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
with your friend. Yeah.
Yes,
You got
yes.
to know your boundaries.
So when we talk about boundaries are those invisible, I like to say invisible lines that, hey, you cannot cross them. What I will allow, what I won't allow. And that's the basis of us creating boundaries align with what we value. And just as drummer and Sylvia, you both agreed, hey, you can't tell them everything.
Mm.
um, I will say that even in my own personal friendships, I'm thankful that I've had the dynamic that I literally could tell somebody everything and I knew that they wouldn't use it against me.
Mm.
Does everybody have that? No, they
No.
don't. So we do need to know what is our safety space, what is our safe place when it comes to relationships, what you're willing to share, and that you don't feel a sense that if that gets out, that it could be used against you. It definitely is essential when it comes to friendships. Still, that sense of equality is so essential when it comes to a friendship. Um, that that area when it comes to teenagers, that is so heavy. They so value their friendships
Mhm.
at that level of development, and that so affects them mentally, emotionally when those relationships are not in a place that's healthy for them. I see it all the time um, in my practice when helping and counseling teens is that is really so essential. And I teach them these assertiveness skills that we're literally talking about today, so that they can learn how to start having friendships, relationships with people, and they can see, hey, you know what, that person really isn't for me because they don't value what I value. They are not talking to me in ways that they care about what I care about. Then they're not really a friend. And
Yeah.
us, teaching that to them.
Yeah. And then don't be afraid to walk away. Because some people stay with somebody just to have a friend. It's like, no, you can do bad by yourself. You
Mhm.
don't need that. Actually, you'll do better by yourself.
There you go.
you know, you
Yeah.
do better by yourself. Then because you can have a friend who goes. Sometimes they may be your friend, so-called friend, but they are tell you things that, oh, your hair is ugly today. Or, you like something, you go, why you like that? That is so ugly. Why you dating him? Or whatever. They could be negative.
Mhm.
Or you wanna go and study. Nah, let's go party. That's not the friend you want. You have to know what kind of friends you need. Like I tell my son, there are positive people and there are negative people. There are people who add to your life and there are people who take away from your life. You hang around the positive people and those who add to your life. Stay away from those negative people who take away from your life, because those people who taken away is not good for you, emotionally or socially. They're taken away because you might want to go to church. They might want to skip school and go to a ball game, you know? So which is more important? So you got to weigh it out. You got to be nice to somebody, and your friend might be ugly. And another thing, when you're having these friends, if you're angry with somebody, or your friend is angry with somebody, they want you to be angry with them too. They're gonna be mean to Joe. They want you to be mean to Joe too. But Joe hadn't done anything to you, so you got to still know when not to side with your friend. Well,
Right.
some people don't do that, and then they get angry. He's my enemy. Why are you talking to him? He's not my enemy. So you got to learn to keep us separate. So
You,
that's
I
what
was looking
relationships.
at those tips to maintain healthy relationships, and even though you can practice all those things, effective communication, compromising, being non-judgmental, um, and just spending quality time, but social media plays a big part of all our relationships now, whether it be one-on-one, family, community. There's always somebody that's putting something else out there, because in the past you just had to deal with the people that were around you.
Mhm.
you know Now you got a whole different audience of people that not living in the same house or the same neighborhood or the same community that you live in, but they have a big influence on how you interact with other people. So do
Right.
you all see social media is helpful, and then on some points it's hurtful. Because I've seen people that wanted to start a new life, and then somebody found them on social media, and they brought all the news out.
Mhm.
And then you know, even when it comes to parenting and things of that nature, the things that you're putting, the values in your kids, when they go online or go into that social media world, they just open up a big Pandora box of all kind of stuff. And so, do you see um, social media uh, as a I hate to say a negative, but do you see pros and cons there? That Do you have to limit your exposure sometimes over there in
Oh, yeah.
order to have a real human relationship?
I agree. Yes, I see that, even in my own family, for myself, as well as helping my clients to set boundaries with their time and how they spend their time with social media. Are there pros and cons? Most definitely. The pros in terms of that, just as you said, someone reaching out, being able to find someone that you had not seen or heard from in years, and now you're able to reconnect, and it could be a positive thing. But at the same time, on the opposite side, of how on social media it's very easy to have what we call the cyberbullying, talking about people negatively, slandering their name, and there is not a very much censoring or the consequences when that may happen. That type of bullying happens online. So when it comes to our children, it is helpful to ensure that we're setting limits on the time spent. That way it's more balanced, that they're not gaining so much of that negative feedback that they are seeing, hearing, and receiving, because it does play a big part on our children and teens, relating to how they start to view themselves of what they're seeing on social media. So definitely setting those boundaries are essential when it comes not just to our children, but even ourselves. Even for myself, I ensure that there are certain times throughout the year I will not look at it. Take 30 days, not have any connection when it comes. It's called disconnect from technology, so we can reconnect to what truly is, people that we associate with every day, being more present, versus the social media can be artificial, but it has its benefits too.
Yeah. So I don't be on there that much to really pay attention, because when I'm on social media, I'm listening to you know doing business stuff. That's what I do. So I'm not you know exposed to a lot. And then too, I am careful who I accept as my friend on Facebook. When somebody wants to be my friend, first I look them up and see what they're about. If they're saying positive stuff and there's something good about them, I might say okay. But if they doing raunchy stuff, nope, I don't do that. And if there's somebody that's not connected with somebody I already know, a lot of times I don't do it either. It's like I'm limiting who I let in my circle. So I don't take a lot of garbage. And even if they were putting it out, I'm not reading it anyway.
Well, and I think we had a question out there. They said we got to bring you back, Ms. Thomas, because sometimes you look at, they got sites that you can find people, plenty of fish, all this stuff, so people are starting at an early age of looking and finding people that they just bringing them into their lives. They can be as early as 16 and putting themselves out there, or as old as 80, putting themselves out there. And some people have found good relationships online, and some people have found some horrible relationships online. So social media is a big player in all of our relationships, going forward, because it's here. And it can be a hindrance, or it could be a shortcut to romance, because there are people, plenty of there's so many opportunities out there now. You ain't just got to wait. You can be in a small town and you can be fishing all the way over in another country.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's the power and the positive of technology. So yeah, as we said, definitely setting those limits and having boundaries. And I would even encourage that be something that is identified as an individual for yourself. If people, even with clients, whether it's a more of a teenager or an adult, and their self-concept and their self-esteem is vulnerable, them just simply scrolling through what they see, there is judgments that they're making about themselves just simply by scrolling. Like Sylvia said, she doesn't even take it in, and there's certain things that she'll focus on. But if we are just scrolling through that feed, our mind is taking in visually all of that information. That's a lot of information that we're taking in just in those seconds. And so we are processing it when we see a certain picture, when we see a certain word. So it's impressionable, not just even to a child or a teen that's on there, but still an adult. So that is so essential that we set the boundary of, how does it make me feel when I'm on social media? And that sense of barometer, is it uplifting to me? Yes, we do want to create that limit and that boundary for ourselves. So we can take the positive of it, because there are some great positives with social media.
Yeah, there is. So we have came to a conclusion. Miss Sharia, we would like to invite you back again.
I would love to
Well,
come.
somebody's interested in you talking about catfishing on
Oh,
social media.
that's going to be the next topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have to set that up one day to do that. Okay, would you like to tell them how you can be reached? Uh, yeah, tell them
Sure.
how you can be reached.
Yes, I can be reached. My predominant website, Sharia Thomas, is under construction, but I can be reached at my lifestyle consulting firm, and that's healthandwellnessservices.org, healthandwellnessservices.org. I can also be reached by emailing Sharia at healthandwellnessservices.org, or contact me. I'm on the major platforms as well as Sharia Thomas.
Oh, okay. Any last words, Reggie?
Uh, Look and have a healthy relationship with yourself at first. Because I think if you build a relationship with yourself, you find out your needs, your wants, your expectation. Then it's a lot easier to go outside and interact with other people. So I would say start loving and finding good things about yourself, and your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah, yeah, and it is so important to love yourself and know what's good for you, make you feel good. And as far as managing relationships, you manage yourself. Okay, know what you want, know what you accept, know what will make you feel good, and then we can spread abroad. Because a lot of times people be throwing stuff at you, and it's like, this is not good for me. I don't feel good doing this, or I don't feel good when you talk to me this way, so I need to leave this. So you can manage yourself rather than just managing somebody else, and that would be a good thing right there. So think about relationships. Okay, what you want in a relationship. As far as the children, how do you want your children to react? Be open to them. Okay, that is so important right there. Be open. Of course, you got to still be the parent, still set your perimeters, to know everything, but be open and listen to them. It's not like do it because I said so. Child might do it, but why? They need to understand why. Okay, why am I doing this? Because I said so. That's not good. Okay, you're doing this because such and such and such. That is why you're doing it. Then no problem with the child. The relationship is good. Okay. So be sure you think about all those things you want in a relationship, and be sure you pop up my book, Power Thoughts, empowering you to be successful in life. Okay. So there is a lot of stuff in there. Again, like knowing who you want in your relationship, in your life. Okay. And don't take anything just to have something. No, you don't need that. Okay. So knowing relationship, even on your job, be careful with that. Knowing that everybody on your job is not your friend. Okay. They're going to be backstabbing on there. It's good to have a relationship, be cordial, but know where you stand with people. If you know they're backstabbing, they're trying to climb the ladder, you can be friends, but know where you stand. Okay. So don't fall for all this good stuff. Well, bad stuff, actually. Okay. But until then, we're going to say goodbye. You've been watching Good News at Primetime. I'm Sylvia Hayes, and my co host was Reggie Drama, and our guest was Sharia Thomas. Until next week, we will see you again. Goodbye.